Have you ever felt that something about a person just doesn't sit right, even when you have no proof, no clear reason, no obvious behavior, nothing you can point to and explain, and yet your body reacts? A slight tension, a subtle discomfort, a quiet resistance. You can't fully understand, so you ignore it, because there is nothing concrete, nothing logical, nothing visible. And in a world that values logic above all, what you feel without evidence is often dismissed. But what if that feeling is the most accurate signal you have? Not because it is emotional, but because it is observational. Because long before you create explanations, you perceive patterns, tiny shifts, micro-expressions, inconsistencies in tone, gaps between words and intention. Things so subtle, they never reach your conscious mind, but they are recorded, stored, felt, and then translated into something simple. Discomfort, not loud, not dramatic, just enough to make you pause. But most people don't pause. They override it. They rationalize it. They tell themselves they are overthinking, too sensitive, too reactive, too cautious. So they silence the signal and continue. But something interesting happens. When you ignore that signal repeatedly, it doesn't disappear. It adapts. It becomes quieter, more distant, until one day you stop noticing it at all. And when that happens, you lose something essential. Not intelligence, not logic, but perception. Because perception is not built through thinking. It is built through noticing. And noticing requires stillness, awareness, presence, things that the modern world systematically removes. You are constantly distracted, constantly stimulated, constantly pulled from one input to another. And in that constant movement, you lose sensitivity. Not physical sensitivity, but psychological sensitivity. Your ability to detect what is not being said. Your ability to feel what is not being shown. Your ability to recognize what does not align. And this is where most people become vulnerable. Not because they are weak, but because they are disconnected. Disconnected from the very system designed to protect them. Their awareness, because the truth is, not all harm is direct. Not all negativity is obvious. Not all toxicity is loud. Some of it is quiet, strategic, almost invisible. It does not confront you. It confuses you. It does not attack you. It drains you. And by the time you realize it, you are already affected. Your energy feels lower. Your thoughts feel heavier. Your clarity feels distant. And you don't know why. So you search for explanations. Maybe you are tired. Maybe you are stressed. Maybe it's just a phase. And while you search externally, the real cause remains unnoticed, because it is not in your environment. It is in your interactions, in the patterns you are exposed to, again and again. Patterns that slowly reshape how you think, how you feel, how you respond, without you realizing. This is how influence works. When it is not obvious, it does not force. It conditions, slowly, repeatedly, until what once felt wrong starts to feel normal, and what once felt clear becomes uncertain. And this is the moment where awareness becomes essential. Not awareness of others, but awareness of effect, how you feel. After certain interactions, how your thoughts change. After certain conversations, how your energy shifts around certain people. Because the effect always reveals the pattern, even when the pattern is hidden. And those who learn to observe the effect begin to see clearly, not immediately, but consistently. And once you start seeing, you start understanding, not through explanation, but through recognition. And recognition changes everything. Because once something is recognized, it cannot return to being invisible. And once it is no longer invisible, it no longer has the same power. This is where clarity begins. Quietly, without force, without confrontation, just awareness. Growing, stabilizing, expanding, until what once confused you becomes obvious, and what once drained you loses access to you. Not because the world changed, but because you did. because you started paying attention to what most people ignore. And that changes everything. There is something most people never question, not because it is hidden, but because it feels normal. The way certain people make them feel, not in obvious ways, not through direct actions, but through subtle shifts that are difficult to explain. A conversation that seems harmless, yet leaves a strange weight behind. A reaction that feels slightly off, but not enough to confront. A tone that carries something beneath it, something unspoken, something unclear. And because it is unclear, it is ignored. But what is ignored does not disappear. It accumulates, layer by layer, interaction by interaction, until the effect becomes visible, even if the cause remains hidden. This is how subtle influence works, not through control, but through repetition. Small distortions, repeated over time, until your internal sense of clarity begins to shift, not dramatically, but enough to create hesitation. And hesitation is where influence begins. Because when you hesitate, you pause your own perception. You stop trusting what you feel. You wait, you analyze, you seek confirmation. And in that space, something else enters: external interpretation, their tone, their reaction, their framing. And slowly, your understanding of the situation is no longer entirely yours. It has been adjusted, not forcefully, but subtly. And this subtlety is what makes it effective, because obvious manipulation is easy to detect. It creates resistance, it creates distance, but subtle influence does the opposite. It creates confusion, and confusion keeps you engaged, because the mind seeks resolution. It wants to understand, it wants to close the loop, so it keeps returning to what feels unresolved, replaying, reanalyzing, reinterpreting, trying to make sense of something that was never meant to be fully clear. And while it does that, your energy is being used, not taken, but occupied, which leads to the same result: exhaustion, not from action, but from mental processing, from trying to stabilize what is intentionally unstable. And over time, this creates a pattern. You begin to approach interactions with more caution, more awareness, but not the right kind. Not clear awareness, defensive awareness. You start thinking ahead, adjusting your words, predicting reactions, avoiding certain topics, not because you want to, but because it feels necessary. And when something feels necessary, without being explicitly required, it is worth observing, because that is how conditioning begins. Not through rules, but through adaptation. You adapt to maintain balance. You adjust to avoid tension. You silence parts of yourself to keep things smooth. And slowly, what you express is no longer fully authentic. Not because you are hiding, but because you are managing. Managing reactions, managing outcomes, managing the atmosphere. And all of this requires energy, constant energy, which explains why some interactions feel heavier than others. Not because more happens, but because more is processed internally, silently, continuously. And the more you adapt, the less you notice, because adaptation creates familiarity, and familiarity creates acceptance, even when what is being accepted is not healthy. This is why many people stay in patterns that drain them, not because they choose to, but because they no longer see them clearly. They have adapted, adjusted, normalized. What once felt wrong now feels expected, and what once created discomfort now feels routine, until one moment, something shifts, not outside, inside. A pause, a question, a brief moment of clarity, where you step back just enough to see, not everything, but enough to notice that something is not aligned, that something feels off, in a way you can no longer ignore. And that moment is important, because it is the beginning of awareness, real awareness, not reactive, not emotional, observational, calm, precise. And once it begins, it grows, not by force, but by attention. Because whatever you observe becomes clearer, patterns become visible, reactions make sense, effects connect to causes, and slowly, what once felt confusing becomes structured, predictable, understandable. And when something becomes understandable, it loses its ability to control your perception. Because you no longer react, you recognize, you no longer absorb, you observed. And this shift is subtle, but powerful, because it returns something to you that was slowly taken, clarity. And with clarity comes distance, not forced distance, natural distance, the kind that happens when you no longer engage with what drains you, because you see it clearly, without confusion, without doubt. And from that clarity, a different way of interacting begins. Not reactive, not defensive, just aware. And awareness changes everything. Because once you truly see the pattern, you are no longer inside it. You are outside, observing it. And from that position, you are no longer influenced in the same way. You become selective, intentional, precise, with where your energy goes. And that is where everything begins to shift. There are patterns that reveal more than words ever will. Not obvious patterns, not loud behaviors, but subtle repetitions that slowly expose the nature of a mind. You don't see them at first, you feel them, and only later, you begin to understand. One of the first things you may notice is how some people never truly answer you. You ask something simple, and the response comes, but it doesn't land. It moves around the question, near the point, but never directly through it. And at first, you assume it's nothing, a misunderstanding, a distraction. But then it happens again and again. Different words, same pattern. Clarity is avoided, not aggressively, but consistently. And over time, you stop expecting direct answers. You adjust, you simplify, you lower your expectations, just to keep the interaction smooth. And without realizing, you accepted less than clarity. Another pattern appears in how your reality is slowly questioned. Not directly, not with confrontation, but through small remarks, subtle contradictions, tiny shifts in perspective that make you pause. You remember something clearly, but it is reframed. You express something honestly, but it is slightly twisted. Not enough to argue, but enough to create doubt. And doubt changes everything. Because when you begin to doubt your own perception, you become dependent on external validation. You start checking, confirming, replaying. And the more you do this, the less stable your inner ground becomes. Another pattern is the constant redirection of focus. You bring something up, something real, something that matters, and somehow the conversation shifts away from the point towards something else, something safer, something easier. And what you originally felt remains unresolved, not denied, just displaced. And when something is constantly displaced, it never gets addressed. It just accumulates quietly inside you. There is also a pattern of emotional imbalance, not extreme, but noticeable. You give attention, but it is not equally returned. You listen, but you are not equally heard. You show presence, but you do not feel the same in return. And at first, you compensate. You give more. You adjust more. You try to restore balance. But the balance never fully arrives, because it was never mutual. It was managed. Another sign appears in how silence is used. Not natural silence, not comfortable stillness, but strategic absence. Moments where communication stops, not by accident, but with effect. You feel the gap, you notice the shift, and your mind begins to fill it with questions, with assumptions, with uncertainty. And in that space, your energy moves outward, trying to reconnect, trying to restore, trying to understand. But the silence itself was already the message. Then there is a pattern of subtle superiority, not openly expressed, not directly stated, but present in tone and reaction, in the way your experiences are received. You share something meaningful, and it feels minimized. You express something important, and it feels reduced, not attacked, just lowered. And over time, this creates a quiet imbalance, where your voice feels slightly smaller, less impactful, less valid, and without realizing, you begin to hold back. Another pattern is inconsistency, but not random inconsistency. Predictable inconsistency. Cycles. Engagement, followed by distance. Interest, followed by withdrawal. Presence, followed by absence. And just when you begin to detach, it returns. Just enough to pull you back in. And this cycle repeats, not loudly, but effectively. Because unpredictability creates attachment. The mind holds on tighter to what it cannot predict. Another sign is how you feel after everything ends. Not during. During, you are engaged, focused, responding. But after, when everything becomes quiet, you feel it. A drop, a heaviness, a subtle exhaustion that does not match what happened. And this is important, because the after effect is always honest. It reflects the true impact, without interference. Another pattern is how accountability moves. Situations happen, words are exchanged, actions occur, but responsibility shifts away from them, toward you. Not directly, but gradually, until you are the one explaining, the one adjusting, the one trying to fix what you did not create. And over time, this becomes a role, a position you didn't choose, but slowly accepted. And finally, there is a pattern that most people miss, because it feels like nothing, but it changes everything. You begin to feel less like yourself, not dramatically, not suddenly, but subtly. You think more before speaking. You hesitate more before reacting. You question more before trusting. And while some of that may seem like growth, this is different. This is contraction, a quiet reduction of your natural state. And when that happens, something important is being affected. Not your behavior, your identity, because environments and interactions shape how you experience yourself. And when you consistently feel smaller, quieter, less certain, that is not random. That is influence, subtle, gradual, but real. And once you begin to see these patterns, not individually, but as a whole, something becomes clear. It was never about one moment, one conversation, one behavior. It was the repetition, the accumulation, the structure behind it. And once you see the structure, you no longer need to analyze each detail. You simply recognize the pattern. And recognition creates distance, not forced distance, natural distance, the kind that happens when something no longer feels aligned. And that is where everything begins to change. And once you see it, you cannot return to not seeing it. Not fully. Something changes, quietly, but permanently, because awareness does not disappear. It stays, even when you try to ignore it, even when you try to go back to what felt familiar. Because now, you feel the difference between what drains you and what doesn't, between what confuses you and what feels clear, between what requires effort and what feels natural. And that difference becomes impossible to ignore. At first, you may hesitate, not because you don't see, but because seeing creates a decision, and decisions create change, and change requires letting go of patterns, of dynamics, of people you once understood in a different way. And that is not always easy, because familiarity creates attachment, even when it is not healthy, even when it drains you, even when it slowly changes how you feel about yourself. But clarity does something powerful. It removes illusion. And without illusion, you no longer negotiate with what harms you. You simply see it as it is, without explanation, without justification, without the need to fix it. Because not everything is meant to be fixed. Some things are meant to be seen, understood, and left behind. Not with anger, not with resistance, but with awareness. Because awareness does not fight. It separates, naturally, effortlessly. You stop engaging in the same way. You stop reacting in the same way. You stop giving energy where it is not respected. And this is where your power returns. Not power over others, but power over your attention, your energy, your presence. Because where your attention goes, your experience follows. And for a long time, your attention may have been guided, without you noticing, pulled into confusion, pulled into doubt, pulled into patterns that slowly drained you. But now, you see, and when you see, you choose, not impulsively, not emotionally, but clearly. You choose where to stay. You choose what to engage with. You choose what deserves your energy. And more importantly, what doesn't. Because not everything that asks for your attention deserves it. Not everything that feels familiar is meant to stay. And not everything that you have tolerated is meant to continue. Some things were only present until you became aware. And now that you are, they no longer hold the same place. This is not rejection. This is alignment. A quiet return to what feels real, to what feels clear, to what does not require you to question yourself constantly. Because real connection does not create confusion. It creates clarity. It does not drain you. It stabilizes you. It does not make you smaller. It allows you to remain as you are. And once you experience that, even briefly, you understand the difference, the contrast, the truth. And from that moment, you no longer need to analyze every situation. You don't need to overthink every interaction. You don't need to search for constant explanations, because you trust what you feel, not impulsively, but attentively. You observe, you notice, you understand, and that is enough. Because clarity does not need complexity. It needs presence. And when you are present, you see. And when you see, you are no longer lost in patterns that were never meant for you. You simply step out of them, quietly, without conflict, without explanation, without needing permission. And in that space, something returns: energy, clarity, a sense of stability that does not depend on anyone else. And that is where everything changes. Not outside, but within you. And when that changes, everything else follows. So watch carefully. Pay attention, not just to what people say, but to how you feel when everything is quiet. Because that is where the truth is. Always waiting for you to notice. And once you do, you will not need to be told what is right for you. You will already know. And that knowing is something no one can take away from you. If this made you see something you were not seeing before, stay, because there is more to understand, more patterns to uncover, more clarity to return to you. Subscribe and continue observing, because the moment you begin to see is the moment everything begins to change.